whole market crash, right? And the housing bubble started to roll over and the stock market started to go down. So what the Fed do? They manipulated the market again and they started crashing interest rates leading into COVID. And COVID was the best thing that ever happened to them because it gave them the ability to unleash the printing presses again, right? And you can see then we got below 3 to 2.5, and that created from the COVID March 2020 all the way until the end of 2021. It caused the biggest housing market bubble in United States history, all-time record highs of $400,000 for the median price of a new home. Home supplies were at a record low, but now all of these are starting to change. You can see the average interest rate's over 5% now as of the last report, but now it's over 6%. And I think this is going to go to 10%. And you can see mortgage loans, United States, average rate, April 15th, 2022, 30-year fixed, 6.875%. 15 months ago, that was at 2.5%, right? And you say, well, what difference is that making? Here's where financial education is really going to make or break the wealthy versus the broke, right? Just look at what you got going on here, right? The 30-year fixed mortgage calculator. Just look at this. So say you take a loan out. Let's make it easy because I like easy math. Say you take a loan out for $200,000, right? You're at 6.875% in the state of Illinois, right? It's similar around the country. $1,314 a month for a $200,000 house that you're taking a loan out. 1,314 times 12 equals $15,000. Times 30 equals $473,000 for a $200,000 mortgage for 30 years at 6.875% minus $200,000. You paid an extra $273,040, not counting taxes and maintenance on that house. And people wonder why the American populace and the average American can never get above ground because people don't have that financial education of you take a $200,000 mortgage out, it's really costing you to pay back that mortgage an extra $273,000. That's 273% interest over 30 years cumulatively you're paying, right? That's why you can never get ahead. And this is only going to get much, much worse, right? Because look at the interest rates, right? And if you look at what's happened on the monthly home supply in the United States, and you can correlate that over with the interest rates, right? The lower the interest rates, the higher the home supply. The higher the interest rates, the lower the home supply, right? So if you look at anytime you get over 7 in the home supply, a housing market problem starts to happen, and then there's a recession, right? And anytime you're at 4 or 5, you're building up a bubble because there's usually artificially low interest rates in that same time frame that's artificially suppressing the home supply by making buyers that shouldn't be buyers, but turning them into buyers at such cheap interest rates, right? And you can see in the 1960s, it was down for about 10 years in the home supply. And as soon as the home supply came back up, because they started raising interest rates, you had a big crash, right? You had a recession. Then the home supply crashed because they loosened monetary policy in the late 1970s, in the early 1970s, and you started building up a bubble again. And by the mid 1970s, you had a crash again, right? So then they eased policy in the late 1970s, going into the early 1980s, and you had a huge inflationary problem, and you had almost hyperinflation because they had too loose monetary policy. And then in red, and that's what these red areas are recessions,